In today's video, we've got a breaking, must-see development heading straight out of Congress that affects millions of people living in the United States, especially green card holders, immigrants, and anyone tied to U.S. immigration policy. If you or someone you know has ever held a visa or permanent residency, you need to watch this all the way through because the rules are changing and the consequences could be enormous. This is American Visa Update, and we focus on the legal and policy changes that impact rights, personal status, and daily life in America. Today, we're talking about an immigration law that just passed, one that has people across the world talking, reacting, and scrambling for answers. Every few years, Congress changes something that affects immigration: visa categories, green card procedures, asylum rules, work permits, fees, and eligibility. But rarely does a new law pass that forces immediate action from current lawful permanent residents, the people often referred to as green card holders. Yet that's exactly what's happening now. Let's break it down in the clearest way possible: what the law says, what it means, who it affects, what you must do right now, and what could happen next. First, let's be clear. No U.S. government policy exists in a vacuum. In 2025 and 2026, immigration policy has been shifting rapidly. We've seen changes in travel bans, expanded enforcement practices, new fee structures, and altered processing timelines across the immigration system. The law Congress just passed ties into all of this, and it centers on permanent residents, green card holders, and makes changes that require urgent attention. Tagavi Immigration Law +1. So, what is this new law? What exactly did Congress pass? The truth is, the specific law you're hearing about merges several legislative efforts and policy changes that have been moving through both chambers of Congress. Some aspects are interpreted online as a new immigration law, but others are tied into broader immigration reforms, visa category adjustments, and enforcement provisions that have just now been finalized or updated heading into 2026. The biggest piece affecting green card holders relates to changes in immigration processing, eligibility requirements, documentation rules, and potential consequences for failure to comply with new federal requirements. Tagavi Immigration Law. One of the headline components is tied to a shift away from old policies that offered automatic extensions or predictable processing. Instead, the law and associated federal policy updates has introduced new obligations for permanent residents, from proving status more frequently to adhering to new documentation requirements, electronic filing systems, and more rigorous scrutiny during interactions with immigration authorities. Many of these changes began rolling out in 2025 and are now entrenched in 2026 procedure. Tagavi Immigration Law, but we're not here to read you dry legislative text. We're here to tell you what you absolutely need to know right now. Millions of green card holders, that's lawful permanent residents, could see new hurdles this year. Here's what's going on. Number 1, there are new system requirements that many immigrant advocates describe as the most sweeping in decades. Immigration services are moving online, forcing many procedures that were once handled by mail into an electronic format only. This includes how documents are filed, how fees are paid, and how status holders must prove their standing. If you've ever relied on paper filing or old procedures, those are no longer accepted in many circumstances. Tagavi Immigration Law Number 2, work permits, visas, and green card renewals are all subject to stricter timing rules. Automatic extensions that used to be common, for example, automatic proof that allowed a work permit to remain valid while a renewal was pending, are being phased out. This is already happening as part of the broader policy shift affecting immigrants and could mean gaps in employment authorization if you fail to plan ahead. The Times of India. Number 3, green card holders must now pay closer attention to what counts as maintaining residency, especially if you spend significant time outside the U.S. Under the new enforcement environment, spending extended periods abroad without proper documentation of maintained ties to the United States could be interpreted as abandoning permanent residency. Immigration officers and judges increasingly scrutinize departures, reentries, tax filings, and proof of domicile. This isn't speculation. It's the direction agencies have been heading with enforcement. Newsweek. One of the most dramatic pieces of related news that underscores the environment we're in is the recent suspension of the Green Card Lottery, the diversity visa program, by the administration, a move that came after a high-profile criminal incident involving a lottery recipient. The diversity visa program used to provide up to 50,000 green cards annually to applicants from countries underrepresented in U.S. immigration flows. That suspension means that avenue of future permanent residency is now closed until further notice and likely contested in courts. The Guardian Plus One now let's get into how the new rules, which are being implemented under this law, could affect you if you already have a green card. First, green card holders are no longer guaranteed automatic renewals if they file late or miss digital filing deadlines. Even minor lapses in electronic payments or missing biometric appointments can result in your file being flagged. USCIS is now enforcing stricter deadlines, and there's less room for remediation than in the past. To Gavi immigration law second, travel outside the U.S. has new risks. If you spend more than a certain time abroad without securing the right reentry permit or documenting your purpose, you may be challenged at the border or when returning. Again, this isn't hypothetical. Border officials have started enforcing this with greater frequency, and green card holders have encountered delays and questioning on reentry more often than in previous years. Tagavi immigration law. Third, the law also affects family-based petitions and immigration priority dates. If you sponsored relatives, their visas and adjustment of status cases will now move under updated rules that impose new documentation standards and stricter background vetting, meaning longer waits and more requests for evidence. Every petition and case is now under heavier scrutiny before approval. Travel.state.gov Fourth, there's an enforcement environment that cannot be ignored. Immigration agencies are now operating with heightened enforcement expectations, including expanded vetting of visa holders, green card renewals, and adjustment of status applicants. And in 2026, courts and agencies alike have shown a willingness to reverse statuses if they find documentation issues or compliance gaps. These weren't theoretical concerns a few years ago. They are now being acted on. Reuters. If you're thinking, well, I've already held my green card for years with no issues, I'm safe, the answer is not as reassuring as you might hope. The new law and related policies now expect more from permanent residents. You must ensure all your filings are electronic and timely. You must maintain accurate and up-to-date contact and address information with USCIS. You must prepare for biometric appointments, interviews, and verification notices that come with little warning. You must maintain tax, employment, and residency records showing intent to live permanently in the U.S., especially if you travel. You must be vigilant about documentation and proof of continuous residence. Green card holders who ignore these requirements are not simply dealing with paperwork issues, they are potentially risking their permanent status. Now let's talk about why these changes are happening. The broader political and enforcement environment plays a big role. The federal government has been tightening immigration controls, expanding travel bans to dozens of countries, and authorizing broader vetting practices for non-citizens, including both visa holders and permanent residents. The Washington Post Plus One, and it's not just about new rules, it's about enforcement intensity. Agencies are pivoting toward more active monitoring, data collection, and enforcement operations. This means your immigration status is being evaluated more frequently, and noncompliance is more likely to be flagged and acted upon. This brings us to a point that should be concerning for every lawful resident. Many of these requirements are not widely publicized. USCIS and related agencies have quietly implemented or strengthened policies with minimal public awareness, leaving many green card holders unaware of new responsibilities until it's too late. So, what should you do if you hold a green card in 2026 and you're seeing these headlines? What immediate steps must you take right now? First, update your address and contact information with USCIS and DHS if you've moved, even once. For many people, failure to do this alone has triggered notices of intent to deny or delays in processing. Second, check all pending cases and notices. If you got any mail from USCIS in the past year, review it carefully. Some notifications require action within 30 days, and ignoring them can lead to case closures. Third, pay attention to biometric appointments. These are not optional. Skipping or postponing them without good cause could jeopardize your case. Fourth, review your travel habits. If you've been outside the United States for extended periods, even for work or family emergencies, it's time to consult an immigration lawyer to verify that you've met all requirements for maintaining permanent residency. Fifth, prepare documentation of your U.S. ties, taxes, leases, employment records, family connections. The more evidence you have showing your residency intent, the easier it is to defend your status if ever challenged. Sixth, if you are filing renewal applications or adjustment of status, start them early. Delays are now longer than ever before, and failing to plan can put you at risk of falling out of status. And most importantly, don't assume that waiting will make things easier. The trend we're seeing in 2025 to 2026 is toward quicker enforcement actions, slower processing times, and less tolerance for delays or missing documentation. Tagavi immigration law. It's also essential to understand that these changes are part of a broader immigration enforcement strategy, not an isolated rule. Expanded travel bans, new policies targeting prison convictions and removal proceedings, and enhanced vetting systems all indicate a shift toward more stringent scrutiny of all non-citizens, including lawful permanent residents. The Washington Post Plus One, this doesn't mean every permanent resident will lose their status. Absolutely not. But what it does mean is that the era of passive immigration status is over. You can't just sit back and assume everything will stay the same. Compliance, documentation, and vigilance are now critical. If you're a green card holder, act today, not tomorrow. Review your documentation. Talk to an immigration attorney. Make sure you are compliant with all updated USCIS rules. Because in 2026, the government is enforcing immigration law in ways that many people never experienced before, and the consequences are real. This has been American Visa Update, bringing you clear, actionable insight into the policies that shape lives and statuses. Stay informed, act early, and make sure you know your rights and your responsibilities under the law.